Usually we would get ready to introduce this podcast as the Coach K Podcast Spectacular, but with the retirement of Coach Kessinger at the end of the 2021 football season, we must retire the name of the Podcast Spectacular unless we get written permission of Major League Baseball and Coach Kessinger continue on with the Podcast Spectacular name. But it is my pleasure to introduce to you coach of the Ottawa University Braves football program, Nick Davis, to this yet unnamed podcast. Coach, thank you for joining us. Happy holidays as we're recording this just an eyelash shy of New Year's Eve.
Thanks for having me, Bob. Yeah, we got to work on that name. Maybe we throw out some suggestions. Maybe we let the Twitter sphere, vote. And, obviously we got to have some good suggestions, but maybe let the fans vote and see where it lies. I don't care. I'm not a picky guy.
Well, and you've got the clout on Twitter. I mean, between the polls, the motivations, the best places to eat around here. I mean, your Twitter game is quite strong. And I am envious, maybe not the right word, but we're going to go with that. Envious.
Well, it's a lot of hard work, and I know you've been paying attention to all the good food places in Kansas, but I really had to step out of my comfort zone, go back to Cincinnati and do some Skyline chili for my wife. I think she was really disappointed I hadn't done any Cincinnati foods. So I had to get away from barbecues and tacos and all the great food out here in Kansas. And when we went back for the holidays, had to shine some spotlight on Skyline chili there in Cincinnati.
We know that Cincinnati is known for the Skyline chili. Name me something that people wouldn't think that's underrated for Cincinnati food wise.
Grater's Ice Cream. So Grater's Ice Cream is a local ice cream chain there where it started in Cincinnati. They make all their ice cream in French cream pots or something, 2 gallons at a time, hand churned. But the biggest thing, what separates Grater's Ice Cream from any other place I've ever gone to, instead of you get a chocolate chip ice cream, it's really a chocolate chunk. All their chocolate is chunks of chocolate. So it is by far the best ice cream I've ever had. And in fact, because of their popularity, now there's some in Indianapolis. They're all over Ohio. I think there's even some that stretch down to Florida for all the snowbirds that go down there that love them Grater's ice cream. I think Grater's is the best food in Cincinnati over Skyline chili, hands down.
Well, as someone who is not a chili person, I will thank you for the suggestion for the ice cream. Plus, when you throw out chunks of chocolate, not just chips of chocolate, now you're ringing my area code on that one.
In fact, for the listeners, you can go to Price Chopper in Lenexa, I know for sure, but there's several locations in the Kansas City area and buy it from the grocery store. Now, you're going to spend, Bob, anywhere from $5 to $7 for a pint, but when your wife really loves that ice cream, you'll spend whatever it takes, because it's a 9-hour trip to Cincinnati to be able to purchase that ice cream. And what I found is as I'm going through the ice cream after my wife has, that there's no more chunks in there, that she picks out the chunks and leaves the actual ice cream in the container.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I would say that maybe I would be guilty of possibly doing that. I mean, that's what I would do to Lucky Charms. Forget the oat goodness. It's marshmallows all the way.
Sure.
The season ends. We'll take a look back at with that. And then we're going to kind of talk about the evolution into becoming coach for Ottawa University, the head coach. Middle of the pack is what you could say for Ottawa University, and especially on the defensive side, when you take a look at what Ottawa had done, just kind of middle of the pack. So for the first year of you being in at defensive coordinator, obviously you always want to be number one, but with what you had to work with the available talent, were you pleased with the end result at the end of the year?
Yeah, from a defensive standpoint, Obviously, we had a lot of recognitions on All-American players, with the three guys kind of getting recognized as All-Americans: Devin Johnson, Devin Johnston, Colby Johnson, and Jacob Garcia. Those were all really good players at each level. And I just think there wasn't enough guys on our defense from last year to kind of meet and match their intensity. Now, I think the also biggest thing is with those three All-Americans, it's not like all three of those guys played lights out in 11 games for us. If that were the case, I think we may have had a little bit better defensively output. Probably one of my worst as a defensive coordinator's worst statistical seasons I ever had. Again, some of that starts off with just not finishing on drives and different things like that. Trying to figure out these players, coming into they did something completely different last year, and just trying to figure out and find the right pieces to put in. We had some injury bugs along the way with our defensive line and some linebackers that had experience, and then trying to figure out the right rotation for the secondary. So it was an adjustment for me, but I think, ultimately, if you go back to it, one of the worst offensive seasons Coach Kessinger had in a long while. If you're not scoring a lot of points, it's going to be hard. Your defense is going to be out on the field. And I'm the first guy to say the defense can go 3 and out every drive. It doesn't matter what the offense can do. But I think our guys didn't necessarily respond if the offense went 3 and out. They went out there with their heads hung, especially early in the season. If you look at our stats from the first 5 games versus our last 6, you're going to see a drastically different defense, and you're going to see a different record too.
Well, and the defense, I think a lot, you mentioned that also is the forcing the turnovers, especially in that second half of the season. If I'm reading what I've got correctly, 14 interceptions, 14 fumble recoveries, 3 defensive touchdowns. And I'm sure a lot of it played early on, not only just with the competition, but learning a new system and trying to figure out where the pieces fit in. But to finish a season like that, those are some pretty decent numbers when it comes to forcing the turnovers and such.
For sure. And I just think we got to keep after it again. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but a lot of I've done a lot of national podcasts about what our defense is. So I was coming into a new conference where I didn't know the coaches. If the coaches really wanted to put in the research to figure out what I have been successful and what we have done over the last 7 years when I was at Rose-Hulman, it was very easy for those coaches to kind of go out and do those things. So I was behind probably the curve a little bit. Obviously, they had just had a whole spring season with their team, and I'm coming in installing a brand new defense with Coach Coombs, who's a brand new coach that I hadn't worked with before. Obviously, I had coached him here at Ottawa with new graduate assistants. So I definitely think even though we're losing 3 All-Americans, we're going to get better because we're bringing back a whole entire defense that knows what's going on for next season.
One of the stats that I look at, that I've been looking at, and I want you to tell me how you feel. Ottawa was the top of the conference in tackles per game, averaging just shy of 75 a game. Would you want that number to be lower, or is it the higher that you like, or do you want something in between? What shows success and what shows that maybe there's issues?
Yeah, no, I'd like actually there to be a statistic where if the tackle is over 5 yards, you have your tackles, you have your tackles for loss. I'd like a tackle for gain stat that is tackles that are over 5 yards, because, you may end up with 100 tackles as an individual player. But, generally when you go look at those statistical champions over who had the most tackles on a season, it's generally a guy that plays for a team that has one of the worst rushing defenses in the country. And Colby was a great football player and an awesome linebacker, but our rush defense wasn't necessarily great. And I'm glad he made those 100 tackles that he had, 100 plus tackles, because if he wasn't, then maybe our secondary wouldn't have. But when our defense at Rose had been the most successful, our leading tackler had 65 to 70 tackles. And we had, a few of those guys in the 60 ranges and then a bunch of guys in the 40s and 50s because we weren't necessarily having to make tackles because half the plays were incomplete passes. We were getting tackles for loss, and it was more spread out versus one guy having to make all the plays.
One of the stats that I take that I'm also looking at, and I think, and this is just not a defensive side of the ball, it's everybody on the team, but penalties were a real issue with this team this year. Most penalties in the conference, 91 total penalties, averaging 8.3 a game, tied with St. Mary, and then 82, almost 83 yards of penalties in on average in a game. That also is something that makes it difficult, whether you're on offense or defense, to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's hidden yardage that if you're getting outgained on penalties alone by 40, 50 yards in a game, that's tough to overcome. Not to mention the amount of penalties that are costing that other team easy first downs where they can keep their drive going. There's so many times that we could have been off the field on defense that we had a penalty. There's so many times that, we were 1st and 10 and we get a penalty and we're 1st and 25, which is going to be tough. I mean, it's hard to get 10 yards in college football in 4 downs, and we're asking to get 25 sometimes. So it's very difficult. And the game of football to me is about being consistent on offense and then trying to be consistently, pretty good on defense. And it's about stringing 1, 2, 3, 4 plays in a row, not necessarily just being explosive, getting a touchdown or being able to take the ball. You can't always rely on that because a good team is going to take care of the football or they're going to protect, against huge explosion plays.
Now that the season is over, what one thing do you wish you would have known at the start of the season that you know now?
I think the biggest thing is I just wish I would have had more time to get to know all the players and have all the players kind of get to know me, not only on defense, but to get to know them, the offensive players, to know them a little bit more, because I think we could have created a little trust factor. Again, if you look at the last 6 games of the season, we played a lot more better as a whole team. We played a lot better on defense, but I think the players trusted me a lot more the last 6 weeks of the season because they knew me for 5 weeks versus, hey, the first 1, 2, or 3 weeks of the season when this was all new and things weren't necessarily going great. There may have been not as much buy-in as what we had, as soon as things started going well, which was that second half of the season.
What surprised you in your first year as defensive coordinator as you look back to everything in the season?
I think the biggest surprise to me was just the amount of coming from coaching at the Division III level, the amount of size difference between some of the players. The players were a little bigger, a little taller, a little faster. And then, there's some players too that are very similar to the players that I saw at the Division III level. But it was just across the board. It's just a little deeper. And I tell my friends this all the time. There's Division III players that can play D1. There's NAIA players that can play Division I. There's Division II players that can play D1. I think the biggest difference is when you're at Alabama, they got 100 guys that can play D1. When you're at Pitt State, maybe there's, and I don't want to talk out of turn, but maybe there's 20 some guys on the team. When you're at Ottawa, maybe there's 10 guys. When you're at a Division III program, maybe there's 4 or 5 guys that could play at that level. So I just think there's more talented players that could play at the next level. That surprised me. And it doesn't, I'd been here and I'd seen that 10 years ago, but I think that's the biggest surprise from the last 10 years of me coaching at a different school.
So the season ends, and obviously disappointing, 4-6. Everyone wants to be the conference champion in that, but take a look at that beginning part of the schedule. It wasn't like you guys were going against little sisters of the poor to start out the conference season. The teams you were playing, Southwestern, Avila, Bethel, 3 out of the first 5. So, and it's no excuses. You want to beat them. You got to beat those teams. Do you like having that tough competition right out of the box? or do you like to try to ease your way in and maybe get a little bit of confidence before you get a big test like a Southwestern or Avila or Kansas Wesleyan?
I mean, I think, Bob, it's based on the type of team you have. We had very relatively not experience within our quarterback situation. We had some inexperience on defense in different positions that if you throw those guys into the fire versus veteran programs, you're probably not going to be in a good situation. Again, we strung a bunch of losses in a row together, and there was that doubt that was kind of creeps into your program. And it takes being able to string some wins together, get that confidence going. So I think it's different years. If we had a veteran club, man, I think you want to play all those hard teams early on because maybe you have more experience on them. If you have a young club, it's going to be tough if you're playing those veteran ball clubs. And we were talking about it as a coaching staff the other day, the two teams that went to the playoffs from the KCAC, we're beating both of those teams at some point during those games. So we're good enough to play with those guys. It's just stringing enough players together to finish against those teams at the top level. Outside of Bethel, who beat us pretty handily, every other game, if one thing happens, and it's the as if game that every coach plays, but I would rather play that game than being handled in the 6 losses that we had, and 5 of those losses, we had legitimate chances to be able to come out with a victory, which is every coach, you want to go into the game and you want to have a chance to win the game. And in my mind, I think we had about, of our 11 games, 10 chances, and we just capitalized on 5 of those.
So now season's over and everyone more than once, it's time to go out, start recruiting and start getting some things together for the next season. And then all of a sudden, Coach K retires. So how far in advance did you all know that this was a possibility?
Yeah, he brought us kind of the full-time assistant coaches, the coordinators, me, Coach Mendez and Coach Coombs, into his office and told us a few weeks left in the season that he was going to retire at the end of the season, and he kind of didn't want the season to be about him and anything about him, which I think is super, admirable for him. He didn't want guys to play their last game for him or any of that. He wanted senior day to be about senior day. He wanted the season to be over with. He wanted to make his announcement with the team, which was, I think, after coaching for 17 years and winning as many football games as he did and affecting as many people's lives as he did, I wish we could have sent him out in a better way. And we're trying to figure out something this spring with our spring football game and maybe partner with our women's flag football team and having a football family day in April to kind of celebrate all the things he did for the program, because he deserves more than just a simple press release. Hey, I'm retiring. He deserves more. So we'd like to give him more, but we knew about a few weeks before the season.
Once word started to get out, what was the process for you in making a decision that you wanted to put your hat in the ring to become head coach? And did you feel like that this was something that was attainable, or did you feel like that the university would maybe try to go outside and do something different?
Yeah, Coach K, when he had brought us in and told us that he was going to retire, he made it very adamant that he was stepping away because he felt that us 3 coaches were leaving. He was leaving the program in great hands. And he went and had told administration and all those sort of things that this is the core group that's going to get it going. He had probably prepared, us for this for a long time. Obviously, Coach Mendez and Coach Coombs played for him. They had coached. I had coached with him. We're going to the coordinator or the Kent Kessinger show and doing the live broadcast and different things throughout the season. So I think even though he hadn't told us, he was preparing us 3 guys to be able to take over this program. And it's not necessarily at the end of the day, yes, I got named the head coach, but it is important to me that me Coach Mendez, Coach Coombs, and our newly hired, co-offensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, that we're doing this together. It's not my vision. It's not, we're going to do the exact thing Coach Kessinger did. It is, what do we need to do, us four core members? What does our team want? How can we be successful? It is a we thing. And I think everyone on our staff currently is brought into that. No one's, hey, mad that I got the job. It's everyone is in it to make sure that we are the best program.
Is it true that it came down to a rock, paper, scissors matchup between you and Coach Mendez?
It was more Indian leg wrestling, Bob. And I have had experience as a 2-time junior national champ in Indian leg wrestling.
That is some impressive credentials right there. That does earn you the title of head coach. That is very impressive. What level of black belt would you say?
Well, just triple ultra black, I think, is the Indian leg wrestling type belt. Indian leg wrestling, I feel like it's more of a belt buckle type competition versus a black.
Does second place get like antler furniture or something along those lines?
Well, Indian leg wrestling's big on, if you lose, you get nothing.
Okay.
There's a participation trophy in Indian leg wrestling.
One of the last few sports that don't. God bless them for not having that. So were you surprised that you were named, and how did you find out that you were becoming the next head coach of the Ottawa University Braves?
I don't know if surprise is the right word. I was very fortunate that I was in the right situation. A lot of times you find out about these, how a guy ends up as a head coach. It's the right situation, the right timing. There's plenty of people across the nation that have, per se, a better resume, but maybe they weren't necessarily the best fit for what we needed here at this institution, nor were they currently employed, which makes things a little easier to allow, what the roster looks like, retaining students, how we've done scholarshiping, what's the great things we've done, what is the things we need to improve on. So I don't think I was surprised. I'm very fortunate that I got this situation presented. Me and my wife were super excited about it. And we just have a lot of energy going forward that this, it worked out. Good things work out to good people. And we're going to pay it forward with how we treat our players, how we treat the staff, and try to make an impact here at Ottawa.
Man, I was going to throw in a witty comment, putting myself down, but I pulled back. I retracted about that one. So we'll carry on. We'll carry on from here. So you're named. Word gets out. Did you right away meet with the team to discuss things, kind of get their feelings about everything?
Yeah. So Coach K announced his retirement, and within that meeting, our athletic director actually then announced that I was going to be the head coach. We didn't want any press release to kind of go out on the same day as Coach Kessinger, because we wanted that out of respect to kind of have his day. Then they obviously did the Twitter live announcement, press release, media day, and in our press box that way better set up, Bob, than 10 years ago when I was here. So you're a pretty fortunate man. And we did that. And then it was get right to work. A lot of other staffs across the country were going out to all these high schools, and we stayed, and Coach Mendez met with every offensive player. Coach Coombs met with every defensive player. And I met with every player on our team just to figure out. I asked them what we do well, what we can do better at, what kind of questions. And because I love food, Bob, and it was around Thanksgiving, what their favorite Thanksgiving food was, what their favorite, dessert. Because I was trying to get a sense of where these kids all come from, what the culture, that they've been brought up in. We had lots of guys that like pecan pie. We had 50-50 on Cool Whip and whipped cream. Certain guys like the real stuff. Some guys like the imitation. A lot of guys like mac and cheese. So it was really about getting to know those guys to make them feel comfortable that, hey, Coach Davis was, this high energy defensive coach, but it was really important for me to get to know the offensive guys a lot better, to, put ease in their mind that, hey, this was a good decision for the university, and hoping to make sure that those guys carried on with our program. And it was really cool because the foundation we're going to build with our program, family accountability and mindset, was really created within those meetings, from what the players thought we did a great job with, what the players thought we could do a better job with, and then what the players thought we could improve upon. And that's kind of laid our core values of what we wanted. It's not what I wanted, it's what our players wanted, what our players have craved for, what our coaches have craved for. And it's kind of go for knowing that this is something more than me. It is, we have created this. We want to do this. We want to get better.
Yes, broadcasting out of the old press box, and yeah, those were the days. Miss those days. So absolutely miss those days. Who am I kidding? No, I don't. So what was the response from your players? Do you feel that they welcomed you, and was a mainly positive response?
Well, I kind of, I guess, set myself up for some success. The meeting had to start with either a high five, a handshake, or a high five, a fist bump, or a hug. So there was some instant, high energy to kind of start each meeting. And you'd be surprised, Bob, how many of these young men actually needed a hug and then said, Coach, hey man, I needed that with finals coming up and going home. So I was surprised, and I was feeding off of them, and it was really not me talking a bunch. It was me just listening to the guys about what their goals were, what they want to, when they're done with here, how could I help them? Again, what do they like? What do they not like? What are their goals for next season? It wasn't me telling them what I wanted to do. It was, what do you think we need to do? And just get to know the guys, and have them feel like I'm there to listen to any of their concerns, thoughts, and be there. And, as the head coach now, you got to take in, those 110 concerns from the players, and the 6 or 7 concerns from the coaches and the coaches' wives. And you got to take that all into consideration. And then you got to make the right decision for your organization, for your team, which you think best benefits. You're not always going to be the most popular guy. I always say everyone hates their head coach at some point. You just hope that, during the season that you hated him, that at the end you realize that he meant what's best for you. And he, got you to become a better football player, a better person, a better father, a better husband, a better dog dad, whatever it is, that they got the most out of you.
What was the one response that you received that, or maybe was there a common theme from your players throughout the process of talking with them?
Yeah, I just think, the defensive guys were obviously awesome. I was so excited about the responses of the offensive players, that they were excited. Again, they knew me as the defensive coordinator. They knew me as the guy with some high energy, trying to give high five and fist bumps. But I had so many positive reactions on young offensive players that said their favorite part of practice is when they got to come and go against Jacob Garcia, the All-American, and Colby and Devin Johnson. And that was their favorite part of practice. And it wasn't because they were dominating those guys. They were a lot of times getting their butt kicked by them. But they said that they had just had a lot of fun, and it brought in the fact that this game, again, everybody wants to win. But at the end of the day, it's about coming to Ottawa. You're going to spend more money than what you do go to Kansas or Kansas State. It's about having a great experience. And I want to win a lot of football games, and we're the 3rd winningest football program of all time. But my goal for these players is to have a great experience out on that football field, whether they play 0 snaps or they're an All-American. They have a great experience in the classroom, and they have a great experience in the residential halls.
So now you've had your meetings, you've talked with your coordinators. By the way, you mentioned a new member of the coaching staff, but did not provide a name. Is this something we can divulge, or is this something that's a player to be named later?
Well, it is a player to be named later when the press release gets released, Bob. But maybe off the air, I can tell you who it is. I don't want to ruin the university's press release.
I very understand it would be kept under lock and key. Plus, I mean, when no one likes you, you don't have anyone to talk to. So you're safe. Don't worry about that. I'm just a fatty broadcaster. Who would I talk to?
Yeah, I don't want to ruin the university's big press release.
I got you. I completely understand and respect that. I would not want to do that either, in all honesty. Uh, so you talked about kind of doing everything as a collective and having a shared vision. Is there something out of these meetings and talking with the coaching staff that is going to be a carryover from Coach Kessinger that will continue on?
Yeah, no, what I think, I talked to the 80 returning players, and 65 of them said the reason they came to Ottawa was the family atmosphere. And that's something Coach Kessinger built for the last 17 years. So I think we can only do a good job of trying to continue to strengthen that. The only reason Coach Mendez is here is because of Coach Kessinger. The only reason I am here is because of Coach Kessinger. The only reason Coach Coombs is here is because of Coach Kessinger. The only reason all of our football players are here. So everyone in our family currently, besides the new co-offensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, is here because of Coach Kessinger. And everyone agreed, 65 of the 80 was the reason they came here. Now, I asked those guys, why do they want to graduate from Ottawa? And those 75 of the 80 guys said the reason they want to graduate Ottawa, and finish up their career was that family atmosphere. 5 guys said their credits weren't going to transfer, which I thought was pretty comical. But I asked them if, family atmosphere was important to them, and they did say that. So almost all 80 agreed the reason, they want to stay here and they want to graduate is that family. And that's something that he did a phenomenal job doing, that it's up to me and our family of coaches and our players to build on that and strengthen that and even get better. We can get better because there's freshman defensive backs that don't know what the favorite food of a senior offensive lineman is. And just little small things that we can always constantly get better at building relationships. And I think that's key because you never know what's going to happen 35 years down the line. That freshman defensive back may be the CEO of a company, and that senior O lineman, needs to be able to work for them. Well, they should have built a really good relationship where they are on campus. So we can always strive to get better at that. So that is something that is by far, that is something that's going to stay. We're going to heighten it. The family flag we run out with, that's going to be a huge part of what we're going to do.
Now, this next question is going to probably be taken out of context by internet trolls or anybody who listens just to stir the pot. But is there something that you would like to do different than maybe what Coach K has done throughout his illustrious career at Ottawa University? And even as far as, are we going to see a little less run and gun? Are we going to see maybe something different in different style? I'll let you answer that in the best, probably in the best Julian Mendez way possible. But I've got to throw this out there, and again, the asterisk is, internet trolls are going to want to try to maybe take it a certain way. This is not to be a slight against anyone, but obviously there's going to be different personalities, different mentalities. So the floor is yours.
Well, one thing, Bob, is there may be less timeouts in the first quarter to windy football games. As a defensive coach, I may not take as many timeouts as you've seen over the last 17 years in windy football games. First quarter, I may take more. I don't know. We'll have to find that out. I think me and Coach K have different styles, so I think that's going to be the biggest difference. Is I'm young, energetic, and he was doing those things I know 17 years ago. Being at one place for 17 years, you kind of get in that routine, and I think you kind of lose your luster. I'm full of energy, young. He actually became the head coach here when he was 35 years old. I'm going to be 35 years old next October. So I feel like I'm in a similar spot, and you probably know better because you knew the man when he came in. But, you can think of me of a young Coach K. And I think that'll be kind of the biggest difference is just the fact that, hey, the head coach is a defensive coach now. We may not go for it as much on fourth down in situations people might have thought Coach K was going to do. The biggest thing is that I think we've already talked about as an offensive staff is we want to use our personnel the best we can. I don't care if we run it 65 times or we throw it 65 times, if that's the best thing to win. I want those offensive coaches to do those sort of things. We don't necessarily have to throw it 75. I'm not going to get mad if we throw it 4 times and win by 30. I think Coach K may, over his 17 years, have got upset a few times if he only threw it 4 times in a game. But ultimately, we want to win, and that's something that is both what Coach Kessinger and Coach me have in common is we want to win football games. And I know he's staying on at Ottawa to be a teacher. He's going to be our biggest supporter. He's going to be the guy in the stands that when everyone's like, what is Coach Davis doing? He's going to be like, oh, I actually understand what he's doing because I've been in his shoes.
Or will he be the one throwing paper at you or something? But who knows? You never know. I
think he needs to come call the games with you, Bob.
Oh, now see, we're getting into a Madden Summerall type thing here, and that might. Ooh, there might be an idea. We'll just put that in the back pocket and run with it. You've been super gracious with your time, and I appreciate that. Real quick, obviously not going to announce anything yet until signing day, but seems to be a lot of excitement on the recruiting side with some players. Yeah, and would it be fair to say that there's going to be some players coming in that can maybe make an impact right away?
For sure. I think we have 21 commits right now, Bob. Really from coast to coast. We got guys from California to South Carolina. We got them as far as down south as Texas, and as high up north is I think right now we got some Northeast guys. So we're pretty excited about what we got going on.
I look forward to the announcements for signing. And that's probably going to be right around. Maybe we'll do the next podcast is after signing day to kind of discuss some of these young men that'll be coming in to help the Ottawa University Braves football program. And so let's see, signing day is still in the early part of February.
Yep.
So nothing has changed on that. So maybe about a week or so out after that, we'll get together. Maybe we'll have a podcast name at that point in time. And who knows? It's a new stratosphere. It's a new adventure now that with the changing of the guard. And I appreciate you taking time out. I know I saved you from a Target visit, and I was very happy to do my part to keep you out of Target. This is exciting and really a lot of positivity and excitement around the program right now.
And we appreciate, me, my family of coaches, the family of players. We appreciate everything you've done for Ottawa football, and we appreciate that you're not only a great supporter, but you're willing to ask the tough questions for the coaches and the players and be non-biased. But at the end of the day, putting on a Division I experience for our kids and doing a great job of it.
Well, thank you. Those are very kind words. I appreciate that. I also want to make an apology to Coach Davis's mother for not interviewing Coach Davis after the ball games. Unfortunately, he was on the sidelines and not coming. I promise there will be plenty of interviews, podcasts, coaches shows. I mean, we're going to have new people we're going to have to say hi to during the coaches show, and that might be the first one out of the box. So Mrs. Davis, my heartfelt apologies. and we'll look to make things right as we go along here.
I appreciate that. And she's listening in Central Illinois, so she's going to get a kick out of that. And she'll be excited after games. Hopefully it's a first win coming out of the gate, and we get to go up to the press box and talk about the victory.
Looking forward to that, Coach. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, and congratulations on becoming the new head coach for Ottawa University football.
Thank you, and take care, Bob, and we'll see you next time.
It's going to wrap it up for us this time. We appreciate you listening to us. However you're listening to us, whether it's YouTube or the links are being shared through Twitter. I mean, there are be like 500,000 people now that will be able to listen to this because Coach Davis has the largest listening base in the NAIA with Twitter followers. So I appreciate that. We'll reach the masses. And we will talk to you again, like I said, shortly after signing day and kind of get a primer of the new signees. But until then, I'm Bob Johnson. Thank you for listening to this yet unnamed podcast as we begin this new adventure with Coach Davis. Thanks again for joining us.